we had a good time online together, and I think we'll resume also doing that because we have a more international outreach. So I think we'll have online sometimes, but of course also some live events so that we can actually meet up and also have a bit more time to exchange on projects and ideas. Thank you for being with us on one of the, I would say, ICOMOS Netherlands classic themes, a theme of heritage and water. And we're very happy to have two speakers here with us tonight. One of us zooming in on actually our present day surroundings, Amsterdam, city of Amsterdam, and a bit more about on Lima. But before we go into the actual topic, I would like to invite Henk Verschaik to do a little bit of an update on behalf of the ICOMOS Committee of the Netherlands on the International Scientific Committee on Heritage and Water. So Henk, please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. I put myself also in front. I'm here representing Charlotte van Hemstede, the president of ICOMOS Netherlands, and also Björn Buisman, the head of the Water and Heritage Committee in the Netherlands, and also Diederik Six, with whom in 2011 we started with this initiative to think about or to validate or to express the value of water-related heritage for today and tomorrow. Our conviction was that in the Netherlands there should be enough arguments found, because 9 out of 11 of our heritage are water-related, to make this linkage. But it was very strange in 2011. The worlds were separated because of the policy at the time, that culture was removed from national level, and so there was a sort of separation between the two. I'm a waterman, I'm not a heritage man. I don't claim to know anything about heritage, but I do have contacts in the water world, and I know that water managers since Mar del Plata in 1977 don't have heritage on their agenda. And even here in the Netherlands, talking to water, except AGV, Amsterdam, it's not easy to talk about water-related heritage in several, except voluntary-wise, but in terms of positions or in the mandate, it's not obvious. So the question when talking to water people is standard, what's your narrative? Explain what's your narrative. And that's not so easy. It's not so easy to explain why water-related heritage should be taken into account today and tomorrow. We're still working on that, but we have a nice target. Next year in New York, there will be the second ever UN World Conference, and with ICOMOS US, supported by our national Ministry of Infrastructure and Water. That's also important. We are supported not by culture, but we are supported by the water ministry. We are organizing 2 days in New York parallel to this UN conference, preparing a scientific document to explain science-wise why water heritage is related, should be connected to today, but also we are working on national compendia. These are stories by leaders, water and heritage. How do you perceive policies, practice? What do you miss instrumentally to connect water and heritage? And that is in the hands of Arjan and Maarten to develop that compendium here in the Netherlands. And then in addition, there are events all in New York. One is at Central Park at the Water Angel for religious and spiritual leaders. The idea is to bring all sorts of religious and spiritual leaders from indigenous societies, churches, philosophical, etc. outlooks, to bring them together around the Water Angel the day before the conference starts, and to just have a moment of reflection, you can say, of, to realize the depth of water into our lives. It's life, actually. It is life. And to bring that inspiration, which goes beyond pipes, it goes even beyond governance, to these people at the UN Plaza. Second activity is a walk up the High Bridge, across the Hudson, for children and everybody who wishes to join. In the inspiration of indigenous leaders, Mona Polaka of the United States. She's the grandmother of indigenous peoples, but also Leon Poa. She is also connected to this network of people who are considering water as so, and they are more reflecting on, I wish to swim in the Amstel Lake. Maarten has been developing also here, etc. So that notion is brought into the parallel event, and then there is an exhibition with sorts of nice pictures.
I suppose you meant the High Line.
Sorry?
The High Line.
The High Line.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that the High Bridge?
Of the High Bridge, it's about, okay, that's, so if you wish to join the working group on water and heritage in the Netherlands, we are also, we are sort of looking for hands and feet to, because there's still a lot of work to do. And I know that the growth in RC is there, but I also know there is still a lot to be done on whatever, public awareness and all that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Henk. Thank you for this introduction. And also there's time, that's I think the best thing of meeting up in real life in the small pause we have after the first talk to chat and to link up. But first, before we do that, we go to your story now. So I would say take the floor, Maarten, and take us into understanding our surroundings a bit better.
Thank you. Yeah, right. Let's stay for Yeah, challenge. In 20 minutes, I would like to make the connection between the past, present, and the future for this area of Amsterdam. And we spoke together about Lima and Amsterdam. And we said, let's try to connect the narratives, or to focus on narratives and maybe on principles of our environment. And I translated this to be design principles for the future city. I am down left, Maarten Ouboter. I'm a technical water management working at the Regional Water Authority, Amstel-Gooi-Weg. So that's the organization, the public organization that organizes the water management in this area to Utrecht, Hilversum, Aalsmeer. So it's the area also around Amsterdam. Henk, I the great luck that Henk connected me to heritage. So it's really thanks to Henk that I'm connected to this connection, to this bridge we are building. And I must say, historical analysis is not only a matter of voluntary work, it's also very important in system analysis. So in water management, we have to understand our water system, to understand also the pressures nowadays and the pressures of the future, to design also and to take initiative to invest in our water system. And historical analysis is a very important part. If we don't understand what we are dealing with, how can we invest? So it's maybe I recognize what you say about the typical protection going from the national level to the lower levels. But still, water management is connected to historical analysis. So I want to spend some time about the past to find this narrative, and then go to the present very shortly, and then one sheet for design principles for the future, all connected to the narrative of the past. That's the idea of the presentation. And very important, we have to start at the location where we are. we are somewhere down in the Rhine Delta. This image looks from somewhere in Italy over the Alps, Switzerland to Germany, France on the left, and down there is the end of the Rhine catchment. And we are somewhere in one of the branches in the catchment, part of the delta. And Amsterdam is a delta city. Focusing on our present location, we see here Amsterdam, and the other side is Utrecht, North Sea. And here's one of the branches of River Rhine, Lek. And our water system in Amsterdam is connected, a connection between Dijk bij Duurstede, River Lek, one of the Rhine branches, and IJmuiden, with a pumping station to spill the water surplus from this entire area and part of the Rhine River discharge to the sea. Yeah. So it's important to know where we are, because every specific spot has its own narrative. Huh? And I want to try to talk about this story of our location. Yeah. This actually is the area, the management area of the Regional Water Authority, and south of us it's neighboring regional water authorities, the Stichtse Rijnland, Rijnland, Noorderkwartier. So we are one of 21 organizations in the Netherlands dealing with water management. Actually, the fourth level of democracy, after the national level, the provincial level, the municipal level, there's the water level of an elected board. There are boundaries, natural boundaries on this green area, which connects Dijk bij Duurstede and the Lek to IJmuiden. And these are two boundaries. I just wanted to state that there was an open connection along the river Grecht this way, which was closed in 1448. And for instance, the connection to the Aar and to Gouda is here at the, originally Bilderdam and later Tolhuissluis. So what happened actually is that they lowered their water levels. Rijnland lowered it in 1621 overnight, 20 centimeters, which is 400 years ago, and which is still the difference between Rijnland and Amstelland. And they lowered their water level to prevent investing in the dikes. So they should have invested in their dikes, because dikes were down, subside. And in 1621, they decided we will not invest, we will lower our water level. And therefore, the water level of Rijnland is 60 centimeters below sea level. They pump all their all their surplus to the North Sea, 100% pumping, never there's a free flow. We are 20 centimeters higher, and we have, at the moment, half of the volume is pumped, and half of the volume we call spuil, which is the indication of a natural flow at ebb tide. So at ebb tide, the sea is lower than Noordzeekanaal, and then you just open the gates and it flows out, spuien in Dutch. And if this doesn't work because ebb tide is too high, you need to pump. And there's a very big pumping station, 260 cubic meters per second. So Rijnland doesn't spuil at all. They pump all their water due to these 20 centimeters choice 400 years ago. Yeah, and we have, as Amsterdam and Amstelland, which is all west of this aorta, which is managed by Rijkswaterstaat, the national level. The western part is Amstel, the eastern part is Vecht. We are now talking about Amstel because that's the site where Amsterdam connects. And we can disconnect it from the Rijks system and use our own pumping station over here. And we pump through these pipes that go under the channel to the yellow area of the IJmuiden. So we have a second opportunity if IJmuiden breaks down. Amsterdam within the hoogwaterkering, the dike, will be dry, because Zeger will protect our area and Amsterdam. So if we look at Amsterdam, trying to find what's the story of Amsterdam, this is a 1767 map of the area. Sorry for hipping around in history, so I take maps and maybe a little anachronistic, but I hope the story works. So this is, I'm not talking about 1767, but I want to use this map just to indicate topography. So looking at Amsterdam, people, water management, but people living in the city, they looked to the north, to the sea, and they looked to the south, to the river Amstel. So there's a river Amstel that connects to the North Sea, and the North Sea is, let's say, everywhere behind this light blue line. And so here was tidal motion. So at flood and at high floods, water was high, and at ebb, water is very low. So it could be minus 150 towards plus 3. So that's the difference in tide over the extremes. When we look at these floods, this is just a graph of January 14, 1916, our last big flooding in North Holland. And the maximum level was plus 283 above the zero level NAP. When we look at the 17th century, the highest, the first flood was the Enerantia flood in January 23, 1610. And it was 2 meters high. Very important to know exactly this height, because after 1610, Amsterdam developed, and all outside parts were raised to a level of the same level of this Enerantia flood, so to plus 2. So the outside, the protection area is plus 2, and the inside area is lower. And then in 1651, 4th of March, St. Peter, the St. Peter's flood, it was higher. I guessed it a little. I'm not sure between 1610 and 1675 which exact level 1651 was, but 1675 we precisely know, and it's also indicated in several places in Amsterdam. We see this level, Zeedijkshoogte, so that's the level that the levee, the dike, should have after this flood, because this flood level was about 9 foot, 5 ton, which is 262 or something meters above sea level. So the floods were higher and higher, and the dikes were higher and higher. So the developments, the 1613 developments were 2 meters. The 1653 developments were 63 developments were a little higher, and after 1675, people were aware that the flood could be as high as 262 above sea level. It's very interesting. I took out this slide, but I said no, let's put it in and take 1 minute extra. This is a map on this 1767 map, the Beekman 1917 map of the inundation of 1672. 1672 was the war event 350 years ago, in which this area of the West was protected by inundation. And the French, Louis XIV, is that English? He was in Naarden and he was in Utrecht. But this area was flooded. And it's actually interesting that if we know where the high waters were, this inundation was technically carried out by inlets at base. And probably at Iversloot and Dievenammersluis. So the inlet of water was Zuiderzee water. It could never have been coming from the south because they were lower since already before.
So salt water.
Yeah, because that wouldn't not so easy freeze Although in November 1672 there was a big frost and the French came over the ice, etc., etc. But let's not go into that detail. After the 1675 flood, Amsterdam started measuring water levels. And they had the water level in the stad, in the Amstel, and in het buitenwater. And these are thumbs. 11 thumb is 1 foot, and 1 thumb is 2.57 centimeters. So we exactly know what it is in our standards now. So they have actually three timelines of water levels. And we have all these data and all these statistics, and we work on them also in Excel and in modern ways to think what happened and how often there were inundations. And that's why I put in the invitation, I put this map. Of course, it's impossible to do the walk, but it would be possible because you can follow the path on Google Maps like this, and you can walk through the city, and this is an altitude map. You can recognize here this Hoogwaterkering, this dike, which is this stone red color, and you see the higher parts which are yellow, the lower parts which are green, and here is the entire walk. You can see you go up and down, and this is the mountain landscape of Amsterdam. It's very interesting to do this walk and be aware. Wow, we are now outside +2, which is really the top of the flat. And now we are, you're down, which is the neighbor area, the working class area. And there's only 50 centimeters above sea level. It's really interesting to look with these eyes at the mountain landscape, because that's one of the narratives. If you have flood, you have a dike to protect, and the floods form the landscape outside the dike, becoming higher and higher. The area grows, and that's the way Amsterdam protected itself until 1872. The tide disappeared, which is 150 years ago. This is Jacob Olie, one of the early photographs. Zandhoek, he lived just 50 meters further. And you can see this is +2. And this is the captain's houses, they are called. And the staircase is even 1 meter higher, and their houses were at +3. So they had no inundation while they lived outside the mud. And this is the modern version of it, street view. Now I want to go to look in the same map to the other side. And again, the rivers. And this map was, it's not indicated here, 1767. And, but we also have maps of, this is the kaart met de handjes, 1595. And we have a very good map of Cornelis Krook, 1525. That's a very important year. 1525, that'll be 500 years ago after 3 years, September 27th. Charles V, Karel V, decided and defined Amsterdam. And on this 1767 map, Amsterdam is indicated in blue. The blue area was allowed to be discharged through the Amsterdam area. And for instance, the red area, which is Utrecht, or here this Noord-Holland-Vecht area, was not allowed to drain through the Amsterdam spill constructions. We have those constructions here in a overview. This is Diemendammerdijk, Diemendammersluis, Ipeslotersluis. This is in Dam Square. There were 2 big sluices. They were demolished in 1915, so they are not there anymore. This one is still functional, and this one has been also taken out of order a few years ago, because the capacity of the middle one is large enough to deal with also this one. So the system changes. The remnants are still there, the relics, and then there's this 5th construction, which is the Sint Antoniesluis in Amsterdam. And this one is 16.2, right now, the construction, but it's older. It was being rebuilt in 16.2. And it's connected to the Bijleveld. The Bijleveld is 1417, taken in use. And the Bijleveld connects this Harmelen area to the Ronde Venen, to Amstel. So that's, let's say, the highway of water from Harmelen going to Amsterdam. And because this was constructed before 1525, let's say in 1417, this was part of the 1525 Charles V area of Amsterdam. Now, so we see a city that protects itself against the flood and chooses its field level and looks back at the river and says, okay, this can discharge to Amsterdam and this area can, this area shouldn't. And then there's a third item, and that's the water quality in Amsterdam. I turned the city upside down on this map, and we see all these sluices and gates and locks, shipping locks on the map. The red ones still being effective, the blue ones being not effective anymore. And when we look at the flushing scheme, so the Amsterdam people, they had an inlet at the Nieuwe Haarlemmersluis at the end of Singel, and they had an inlet in the center, Dam. Some of the rears of the gates there, and they flushed it to Amstel, and from Amstel back through Prinsengracht and to Nieuwe Vaart and to Jordaan and outside. So there was a flushing scheme at flood, an inlet in these constructions, and at ebb tide, an outlet at the outside of the city. So look how people started to, what's in English, the game of jongleren, juggling, protect, discharge of river water through, and flushing in the median. So they did like this, like circus act, every day, every hour.
And what does the intensity of the color indicate in this map?
This is relatively clean water, relatively rich people, relatively dirty water, relatively poor people. So the flushing scheme was adapted to the level of class in society. And then after 250 years of this juggling game, the harbor extended. Hoeveel tijd heb ik nog? So the North Sea Canal, it was started to dig in 1872. Yeah. And the closure at the first moment to Oranjesluizen was 1872, and it was taken into use 1876, North Sea Canal. So here we see the Oranjesluizen 1872 in the photograph, aerial photograph 1987. Very interesting, the pumping station still being there, because at the moment the tide stopped, there was no ebb tide, and people started being in trouble, being not able to spill the water surplus, because ebb tide was used, and there was no ebb tide anymore. So we can read about the negotiations between the private company developing the North Sea Canal, and Rijnland, and Amsterdam, and Amsterdam. Amsterdam and Amsterdam were different entities. They are now connected happily. The people from Amsterdam, Rijnland, and Amsterdam said, we always want ebb in this channel. So let's say -50. And you must build pumping stations to keep -50. They tried, but they never managed. So the level was -40. And the discharge of water was always very hard after 1872. So there were all types of measures taken. This is the pumping station that has been built, 1879, it's steam. 1912, it's electric. This is an aerial photograph, 1924, it's the old pumping station. It has been rebuilt, actually, here. So that's the old pumping station, and here's the new pumping station, 1942. Very interesting The decision was from February 1940, 2 months before the war, and they started constructing it, and it was finished in autumn 1942, and really finished 1943. And it had 3 pumps, and the 4th pump has been built after a crisis in 1957. So that's how many years later? Huh? 63 plus 28 years later than the North Sea Channel. We are still struggling in the discharge of our river water to the North Sea, huh? And we are still making steps in which we have to improve. So the narrative is about protection from the tidal water, high water sculptured the field level. Amsterdam is a terp, a mount. It's actually a constructed higher area on which the houses are built because the sea was close and you want to diminish the effect of floodings. Amsterdam depends on immediate discharge of rainfall surplus. There are very tight levels in IJ and in the canals. So there is no storage in the water area. And the choice of catchment parameter was political. You can drain to Amsterdam and you can't. And so if we look to nowadays, we still use, this is the Hoogwaterkering with all the gates. We still use them because if the water level in IJ is higher than -20, only 20 centimeters higher than normal, we close those gates, and we start pumping with Zeeburg. And one of these is a 17th century eenhoornsluis, and another one, another gate, that's this one, the yellow one. And another one is the 1968 gate at Oosterdok, this one. So it's not one system 17th century, it has been built, reworked on later because of its functionality. And then last slide, Amsterdam Delta City. We have a past with a narrative, we have a present with an action perspective to use all the old stuff we have, but it's still very important for us. And we have, for future, we have design principles coming from this narrative. And the longer text is on the left, but it's open water. One of the design principles is keep the water open. Don't build houses, don't build islands, don't build floating parks. As the municipality, we have a new government in the city of Amsterdam. They mentioned water in their coalition text. Only once we will examine floating parks on the water. We will use the water because it's useless to us. How wrong they are. The design principle for the future is keep your water open, including the IJmeer. We need the IJmeer for a pumping station after 100 years on the Afsluitdijk to drain River Rhine to the North Sea. And this is the best place to do it. If you construct houses and tramways and railway and Markerwaard, etc., we will trouble ourselves after 100 years. Another design principle, extend the pumping capacity. This is Zeeburg 1912 picture. We have to build a new pumping station separate from IJmuiden on the other side to IJmeer to have a higher pumping capacity when we have to depend on pumping capacity after sea level rise. The sea level rise will prevent us from the free discharge. Another one is we have no capacity in our water system. It has a tight water level. So you have to have your storage in Sponge City. This is an Alice Wielinga picture. She made this very beautiful picture of all gardens and green spots. And nowadays you should have a storage of at least 70 millimeters at any rain event in the city without discharging to the water system. Another choice is field level. Please keep your mount high. Don't dig cellars under your houses on the terp, as the entire of Amsterdam is doing right now, which is not sensible when you're looking to design principles. This is a new area. The houses here, the windows are below sea level. How is this possible in Amsterdam? So we are not looking to the next generations. We are really investing in now, only now. Right? And the last one, conserve the dijk. This is the Zeedijk at the Oude Zijdskolk. The north side, Niederdammer dijk, is a dijk of Hollands Noorderkwartier. It has been given up. Houses are building cellars now in the dijk. The dijk is 5 years later is almost immediately gone because people start digging their houses into the dijk. Amsterdam shouldn't do that. We should conserve our dijk. People think let's give up our dijk after the Lek, the dijk of River Lek has been rebuilt. But don't, because after 100 years sea level is higher. We will have to spill our surplus to the North Sea. We will need this. And yeah, I must say, almost like a prophet in nowadays time, looking to the past. We are doing the wrong things going to the future, and we can take design principles, learning from the past, see what we use now, and please listen. I would say to everyone to the design principles that come from the past.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Maarten. So, who of you were already aware, coming into this room, that we were on a mountain actually tonight? Okay, nice insight there. And so, okay, we have to learn from the past, and in the past we've always been adjusting. We've always been adjusting the system. What is your outlook? Is our pace of adjustment, is it getting stronger? We're at a higher pace now than we used to be?
No, we are more blind than we were in the 17th century, because in the 17th century, once in a while there was a warning, and people adapted because of this warning. We have had our last warning in 1960, and we have now afsluitdijk, so this is solved. So go on developing. Now we are way behind on the 17th century, and I must say the situation will be a lot worse than in 17th century, with floods of 260 and low waters of -120, because we are working towards an exit scenario 200-300 years. We will not be able to live here, and there will be a reason to leave this delta area because of transgression of the sea. So there will be a lot of more pressure. So we must adapt to this future pressure now,
Okay.
and we are not aware.
I'm sure that raises some questions from the audience as well. Yeah.
Very interesting story. Just one minor detail. Why did you say that floating buildings is a danger to Amsterdam?
Because we need this system for discharge, and not on most of the days, not on 364 days, but on 1 or 2 days every year or every few years. You need a system like the River Rhine, and we have this project Ruimte voor de Rivier, in which you give space to the river to extend when you have high levels. We should do the same.
But what's the problem if houses are floating? What's exactly the problem?
We have floating houses now, 2,800 boats. The first ones complaining about water levels changing 5 or 10 centimeters are the people who live in these boats. So if those houses would be really floating and they could go up and down, but they are attached to water pipes to wastewater pipes.
It takes away the discharge capacity.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
One thing, people look at the open water as being non-used space, but it's used very much. It's used for the blood veins of our landscape, and you can't clog your blood veins, so leave it open.
But if houses would be really floating, it would be okay, right?
if they would never complain, if they would have to go away, if your veins are needed because your heart is in trouble. So we must keep our veins open in the landscape.
Yeah, I'm very curious. Do you think we will manage with this technical system in the really long term? Let's say 2200 or.
Yeah, I think we are going towards an exit scenario, but we will be able to have very good time in the meanwhile. So maybe 200-300 years it will be impossible, but the first 200 years we will really need our good spirit to make this a good place to live. And a good place to live for 200 years is a good place, because this is, look at Amsterdam, we don't want to leave. Huh? So I think eventually our children's children will have to leave, but those 200 years are very important and we should invest now. I strongly believe that we should build, but build looking towards the next scenario and not only for making money in the next 5 years.
So giving up in the end for you already is like a given.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a very much cheerful message. Thank you.
You were talking about Amsterdam, but is this also the case for all the cities in the coast?
I'm afraid so. And yeah, we have luck, or it's not luck. It's also I also feel guilty, but we are in Amsterdam in a very rich place. So we had these problems, and we had the money to invest to make it a good place. So Amsterdam is principally a good city because we also brought the wealth to Amsterdam. And other places are maybe less wealthy, and they will have more problems.
Okay, I'm afraid we're not ending cheerfully, so this is a different direction. Otherwise, we have to discover. Okay.
Is the appetite still low enough to expel water without pumping, or is that gradually deteriorating?
I think in the last 10 years we went from 1/3, 2/3. So 2/3 could be free flow. We are now half. And probably in 20 years we will be 1/0, only pumping. Like Rijnmond. Like Rijnmond in Katwijk, -60. They never spill, they always pump up.
Last question before the break from Javier.
Maarten, do you also see options for adaptation? So that to what extent should we accept that we have to live with an abundance?
Oh yeah, I see many options for a very creative challenge for adaptation over this period of 200 years. Could be 300, but if sea level rises more than, let's say that ebb tide is higher than the street level in Amsterdam, I think that's the impossible situation, because any calamity will bring in water in your street and you will never be able to get rid of it in 1 year. So I think one very important point is if ebb tide goes above the +50 or maybe +2 outside the Ouboter, and so that's a sea level rise of 2 meters, and then and we need our adaptation in the meanwhile, in the first 2 meters, and after that it will be a new challenge. I don't know what our children's children will invent. Yeah.
And so it is a strategy with a limit, it has its limits. So
Yeah, because when the sea level would rise 10 meters, what could we do?
Okay, I think it will be very interesting to have an extra eye on our second presentation after the break about Lima, not only about the history, but maybe also our future. Who knows? Maybe we'll all move in someday to higher grounds, but let's put that for after the break. So we can have coffee again where we had a small dinner, and then we'll go back to here for Javier. Okay, thank you. Ja, hij lijkt niet helemaal scherp te stellen. Hij is een heel gaaf.
Oh, inderdaad. Ja, nu is hij scherp. Hij staat scherp op jou.
Ja, als je echt helemaal achteraan staat.
kun je een beetje aangeven wat
Soms zijn niet
Nee.
eigenlijk zeg je wetenschap tot 2050 en daarna oude ideeën hoe alsnog ontwikkeling gaat. We hebben gewoon heel veel meer tijd zitten.
Wat is het meest waarschijnlijke?
Kijk, het gaat helemaal weg van 60 meter. En dat is een soort financiënheid. En hoe hard het dan gaat de komende jaren. Ik denk dat we moeten adapteren door omgeving met ergens anders heen te ontwikkelen. Ik hoop dat we dan zeer weinig Europa hebben, want anders zijn we misschien niet erg welkom bij de bevolking die daar zo hartelijk welkom hebben geheten. Ja, niet over 60 meter, dan heb je zelfs het heuvel niet. 60 meter is heel veel. Het kan wel zijn dat er weer een nieuwe wending komt waarin het ijs gaat groeien op. Het is niet gezegd dat we het maximum bereiken. Maar 10 meter is ook heel veel.
Bij huizen bouwen die voor de eeuwigheid is voor deze.
Nee, maar het gelooft niet in huizen voor de eeuwigheid. Hij komt 100 jaar op de tijd. Ons huis is gebouwd in 1928. Nou, dit huis is gebouwd in, afhankelijk van de tweede of eerste generatie. Maar in een stuk, waar zitten we hier? 1663, hè? Ontwikkeling. Ja, dus de huizen hier zijn ouder. Maar ik denk dat veel huizen van de toekomst denkt men nu over modulairder te bouwen. Dus de infrastructuur duurzaam te maken en de huizen absoluut plaats te maken.
Ik weet van wat net is wel interessant van wat ga je doen?
Ja,
op zich, dat is niet volgende. Wat wil je behouden? Dat wil je op een of andere manier op dingen er echt afscheid van.
Ja, dus bij de 60 meter ja,
Of verdwijnt het allemaal in de stuurmeter, zou ik zeggen.
ja, op zich is het wel ongeveer zoals de stuurmeter de Russian.
Of ga je deel plaatsen?
Ja, zeker.
Wel interessant.
Ja, kijk naar Venetië. Daar
Toch ben
is
ik blij dat je 70 plus bent.
Venetië is dit ook al gaan. En kijk wat een prachtig erfgoed Venetië nog heeft. Dus het is niet in één keer weg. En het erfgoed is denk ik essentieel om die lessen van het verleden te kunnen vertellen aan de huidige generatie om keuzes te maken. En dat doen we onvoldoende, want we maken verkeerde keuzes. Ik begrijp dat niet.
Maar goed, als je dit soort, dat duurt daar ook eigenlijk wel wat meer.
Ja, maar wel over zo'n lange periode, wat er generaties nog kunnen leven.
Dat is steeds om een onderscheid te maken.
Ja, want
dit verhaal ook
eerlijk gezegd,
dat historie is.
ik ben 61, maar toen ik jong was, dacht ik, dat soort veranderingen zijn dan groter dan de mensenleven. Dat is nog steeds wel zo, maar het is toch verrassend dichtbij eigenlijk.
Ik vind het ook heel van dat mensen daar zo rustig op weten.
Ja,
Eigenlijk is het voor ze, hè? Want het is een soort van hybride, die de huisarts of de specialist dat heeft.
Ja, maar weet niet zo goed bij de huis.
Ja, het is een beetje die mop van kind huilend, papa. Waar ben je bang voor? Ik heb de wereld vergaan, de zon explodeert over 500 miljoen jaar. 8 jaar geleden geslapen, dus dat is ook 2 miljard.
Ja, dat is een vraag, wat dan
Maar ik was verrast dat het centrum van Amsterdam eigenlijk ook ligt.
Ja, als je moet vluchten van de omliggende polders, ga dan naar het centrum van Amsterdam.
Maar daar zit ook
Ja, Kost-Dikon heeft in de duinen.
in Bakker zit dat hoger, niet zeg maar. Oosterland.
Maar het erfgoed gaat
Ja, dat staat bij de polders met water. Maar de duinen zijn nog dichtbij. Om niet te denken, ik moet naar de Veluwe.
Wel dat dan de Papenberg Ja, de boerderij en de Wijkersmeer, dat is wel bij Wijkersmeer
hoe kan ik zeggen?
Maar je staat verhalen door, want dit is inderdaad, je denkt het over na, maar je ziet beleidsmakers denken er ook niet over na, waar politiek is. is iets van 2 jaar, is dat 2 jaar, ik bedoel, dit al 2 jaar.
Ik heb,
Zijn er nog, maar op een andere manier.
We hebben de Delta-commissie, die maakt plannen voor over 15 jaar. En ze zei, ik weet van doorvragen dat ze ook over 200 jaar wel gaan nadenken. Maar dan zouden ze dus kunnen staan, omdat die keuze te maken. En ik vind dat eigenlijk best. Ik vind wij moeten zich met elkaar bewust zijn van de wereld waarin we bouwen.
Ja, dat is in de mannen zijn jongens, niet 30 centimeter naar, nee, 60 centimeter. Grote kans op grotere aardbevingen.
Toch goed dat je het gezegd hebt, in ieder geval. Ja, het jij moet toch wel even door.
Nou, een kopie, toch?
Oh ja,
Ja, mooi verhaal. Zeker dat je deze relevanties. Dan maak je hier, hoe maak je zeg maar de geschiedenis erop. Maar dat is een andere vraag, een andere vraag. Dan hoe maak je het erfgoed? Nou ja, dat vind ik anders van verder gezegd. Ik kreeg naar deze vraag. Die kreeg ook naar dit of een ander. Oké. Nou, dan is het een interessant. Nee, dat is het ook. Ja. Daar zit Carola dus ook. Ja, dat is jouw lijn, hè? Die zegt dat zijn verschillen. Ik heb daar gewoon, ik ben geen deskundige, maar als ik vanuit wat Maarten vertelt, zie je hoe hij het eigenlijk is. Maarten verbindt het met elkaar, ja. Dat is, maar je kunt daar wel de disciplines onderscheiden. Ja. Al moet je ook weer oppassen. Dat is inderdaad een nauwkeurig spel. En natuurlijk veel met elkaar te maken. Ja. Maar je moet ze ook niet met elkaar gaan verwarren, want dan kom je op tot verkeerde conclusies. Erfgoed is niet hetzelfde als geschiedenis.
Nee, maar erfgoed is misschien wel een materialisatie die er nu nog is van de geschiedenis.
Natuurlijk, in die zin heeft erfgoed figureert in een historisch discours, natuurlijk, laten we dat niet vergeten. Maar laten we ook niet vergeten dat erfgoed, gebouwd erfgoed, ook figureren in een ruimtelijke realiteit. Ja. En die moet je niet met elkaar gaan verwarren, want dan krijg je ook.
Ja, maar dat is niet alleen de Waag, dat is ook de Gelderse Kade en de Kloofniersbrugel. Dus het erfgoed zit overal.
Ja, nee, terecht.
Dat is gemaakt van dat erfgoed.
Alles wat om ons heen is uiteindelijk erfgoed.
Ja,
het komt uit het verleden.
Ja, maar dat is wel een interessante discussie. En Carola wil dus echt aan een verbreding. Voor dat erfgoed vanuit het nauwe perspectief van het gaat om zeg maar, het monumentale karakter of zo. Zij ziet het meer als een groot geheel in Nederland zegt. Zij ziet overal de. En ja, dan is dus de geschiedenis inclusief in haar formulering of haar definitie van erfgoed. Zo zie ik het bij haar. Ik heb het nog niet op zicht gezien.
Nee,
dus ik denk dat dat een punt is wat toch nog een keer opkomt.
Wij keken met Monumenten en Archeologie in Amsterdam. Heeft een prachtig werk gedaan het afgelopen jaar om de monumentenwaarde van sluizen en gemalen te beschrijven. En wat blijkt, de meeste hebben geen status. Dus je zou eigenlijk ook, als het hele landschap van erfgoed is, zou je veel meer statussen vast kunnen leggen. En als er dan een kadermuurproject komt, dan komt er niet iemand een idee die zegt laten we deze boom behouden door hem 3 meter op te schuiven. Want het is ook voor het, laten we zeggen, het designprinciple, we moeten het water open houden. Dus we kunnen niet zomaar bomen in de gracht planten. Terwijl de gemeente daar serieus met die voorstellen is gekomen.
Nou, je moet even heel scherp je doel voor ogen houden. Maar wat wil je met je erfgoed? Wil je het erfgoed behouden om een verhaal te vertellen? Dat is iets anders dan wil je erfgoed inzetten voor een samenleving.
Maar dat wil je eigenlijk al weten.
Precies, eens.
En waar zit de traditionele? De traditionele inzet op erfgoed?
Bij traditie zetten wij het behouden erfgoed op het historisch argument. Op het culturele argument. Dus historie, identiteit, schoonheid. Dat is altijd. Dat zijn zeg maar de argumenten voor de instandhouding. Maar ik denk dat er vandaag de dag ook heel andere argumenten zijn om hetzelfde doel te bereiken. En een van de meest urgente is denk ik die omgevingsfactor, die ecologie en daarmee ook de wateropgave. Dat water kan op een gegeven moment bepalen of je iets wil behouden of niet. Los van het feit of het nou historisch is.
Ja.
Het water kan op een gegeven moment bepalen of iets dat ik van erfgoedwaarde vind, hoe ik dat kan ofwel beschermen of ga aanpassen.
Ja, dat zou de hoogwaterkering bij uitstek zijn. Hè? De waterwereld wil die slopen. Dom. Maar hou het ook voor de stad. Hoe belangrijk is de hoogwaterkering voor de stad? Hè? Hou hem voor beide redenen in stand. Hè?
Dus ja, nee, dat is denk ik toch. Ik denk dat de opdracht is om een hele perspectief te verruimen. Dat is denk ik alle aanleiding toe. Om ruimer te kijken dan alleen het historisch argument. Maar goed, dan redeneer ik vanuit zeg maar mijn discipline.
Ja.
En ik zie inderdaad dat mijn vakgenoten zo zeg maar soms krampachtig aan die historie vasthouden, waarbij ik